several,
Motorist hears the screams from Denise Lee as she was stuffed in the middle of a vehicle that was driving towards her ultimate gravesite. He identified this man, a live picture of Michael King, awaiting day 2 of his death penalty murder trial. So, did he do it? Did he abduct and rape and execute and bury that young mother of 2 babies? It's all coming up right now on Open Court. Good morning, everyone. I have to say on this particular story. Joining me live in studio right now is Tom Ruskin, a private investigator and a former NYPD detective. I don't know why I get so fired up about these things, but I think I look at this kind of a story as the kind that can happen to any one of us. There are lots of crimes that you and I have covered together, right, Tom, from this set, where we just don't feel like we're going to be a part of it because we don't circle in those areas, right, and we don't hang with those people. But this is the kind of crime that can happen to every single one of us out there, horribly random as it appears.
Or our children.
Or our children, who are left alone.
Right, who are playing in the front yard, or a woman who's unloading her groceries, who's abducted from in front of her house. That's the scare in this case.
So how often, you're a cop, you know how this works. How often is it that a crime like this can be perpetrated by someone? A rape, an abduction, a battery, a horrible set of circumstances, and then ultimately somebody else decides to do the killing. How often is that actually the case?
Very rarely.
Very rarely.
The person who's abducting, the person who's sexually assaulting the person, if there is a murder, hopefully there isn't. Hopefully they stop at that portion of the heinous portion of the crime, but there's a murder. Who else is coming in to murder someone at that point in time? It's just inconceivable. This case is such a slam dunk for the prosecutor with all the evidence that they have. I can't see any way at this point in time that they could look at any other way.
Yeah, I think that whole thing when we talk about reasonable doubt, everybody's going to have to really think about what it means to be reasonable. You're not going to be leaping to giant conclusions.
Mr. King wasn't reasonable.
Doesn't sound like it in any case, but he certainly deserves a good defense, and he's got one, I'll tell you, in this particular courtroom. Denise Lee's own call for help expected to be the most explosive evidence in this case, and the prosecutors say the victim called 911. So a brief sidebar, but I gotta say, this is one hell of a witness. Jane Kowalski knows exactly what it is she's saying. She's articulate, and not just now on the stand. I think we're all pretty clear on just how articulate she was on that 911 call. Tom Ruskin, I heard her say several times on that 911 call, let me clear that up, screaming, not happy screaming, like I want to get out of here screaming. That's somebody who is desperate to get information to a 911 caller, operator.
She couldn't have been more clear in the information she was giving, where they were, and why they didn't dispatch a unit to intercept his car and maybe save Denise's life is beyond me.
I think that's the issue that has been so it's caused so much consternation in this particular case, because it was also a potential motion for suppression as well as to the behavior and the response of the police.
And the fact that she was banging the car so instinctively to call for help, and no one came to help her.
Right.
Police failed here.
Amazing how she says it was a child, which might make you think, ooh, that's ripe for a cross-examination. But honestly, if it's a child in the car, you'd think they'd respond faster. They have gotten back to life, so let's listen. Okay, so we see a little bit of the tactic here starting from Jerry Meisner, and that is to start attacking right away the photo array. Tom Ruskin, you corrected me. It's not a lineup. It's a photo array. Important.
Correct.
Just very quickly, because he started the questioning again. She'd seen his picture on the news before she did the photo array.
Right. So what he's trying to show is that her eye would have naturally gone to a picture she's seen before, and therefore the photo array would be tainted.
Okay.
Or a lineup could be tainted, because if she's seen it before, she can't identify him just from the time she saw him in the car.
Is it fair, really, to say that that's taint? I mean, I understand what you're saying, but at the same time, this woman has had a traumatic experience. She'd looked right into the eye of this man. She sees the news the next day and says, that is him. Right. That's the guy.
Right.
I mean, if she recognizes him on the news right away and says, that's the man I saw yesterday, and then goes in and does the photo array, isn't that the same thing?
Not really. Not as far as the law is concerned, not as far as a police lineup is concerned, not as a photo array, she is tainted. But she's explaining why she's tainted, and she's putting it out there and let the judge decide if the photo array should stay out or go in. Obviously, in pre-motions, he's decided it's going to come in. He doesn't feel that she was tainted.
Yeah, okay, we have a sidebar right now, but I can't go to break before asking you this question. Where did they get those people for the photo arrays? Because that one was frighteningly accurate. Those people looked so alike. Where do they find them to put them in these pictures?
Nowadays, with computers and previous people who've been charged with crimes, you can put in, I'm looking for this, a white male with a beard, about this age, about this weight, with the face. And you can go through photos and you can pick them out from previous people who have been arrested. Or you can go out in the street and you find people who look alike and you pay them. There's a set fee. I think it's $15, $20, but it's been a few years since I've done it, and you pay them.
And what about office
Same thing
mates?
with lineups.
Can you get other police officers who might be in the precinct to do that too?
A lot of times, if someone looks like someone else, you'll say, "Hey, Joe, can you come up here? We need to take a photo of you for a photo array." Right.
Amazing.
Or we just shoot the top of them.
Right. And another interesting anecdote as well about a lineup, that when a defendant comes in to take his or her place in a lineup, there's something unique that the police allow him or her to do.
It's not unique. It's to basically not taint the lineup. The defendant gets a chance to pick whatever position they want to be in, 1 through 5, so that they can't say that the police purposely put me there, and he picks his own number, and then the other people fill in the numbers surrounding them.
Fascinating. It's great. It's always interesting to hear these little insights. Really quickly, we'll squeeze in a quick break while they're at sidebar with our email question of the day. Once again, what effect do you think hearing the victim's 911 call, her own 911 call, is going to have on this jury? By the way, we've only heard the transcript. All right, brief sidebar. Just as we get underway with this brand new witness, you've missed nothing. She basically swore in. Kathy Jackson said that she no longer lives in the community she used to, but at the time of this crime, she was working for the Sarasota County Sheriff's Office. Now, here's what's key. I'm not sure if this is the 911 operator who was unable to transfer Jane Kowalski's extraordinarily important phone call to the appropriate authorities so that someone in dispatch could actually get a police cruiser out on the street to try to track down the green Camaro with the screaming person, child, as Jane Kowalski described it, inside the vehicle. Jane identified that man in court, Michael King. She even said it in court. That man over there was driving the car, said she looked right into his eyes and that he looked right into hers. Real quickly, Tom Ruskin, a 911 operator that doesn't transfer a call, while it's tragic, it doesn't point to this defendant.
No, it doesn't point to the defendant. It shows just that she didn't do her job or the police didn't do their job. There was some breakdown which could have led to this woman's death.
And the prosecutor bringing this up, I mean, obviously I get it. Prosecutor also has to sort of get in front of bad evidence when he or she can, or as early as possible. But they fought heartily to keep any evidence, the prosecutors fought heartily to keep any evidence out of this case that would suggest that this was a bungling of police activity.
Well, it doesn't bode well for the police department. It doesn't bode well for the, prosecution's case. You'd be better off, trying to keep it out. But you know what I'm saying? If it's coming in, get in front of it.
Get it out early. Well, let's continue to listen and see how they actually end up bringing this in. And if, in fact, this is the operator who made that fateful mistake, let's listen. And into this conversation as well, because look, I have a lot of empathy for this family. I cannot imagine. First of all, I am feeling a bit queasy about the notion of hearing this woman begging and begging for her life. Obviously, with screams so loud, a car next door, several cars next door can hear this.
Right.
But at the same time, you and I both lived through 9/11, and media operators all have I don't want to say it's collusion, but we all have a gentleman's agreement that we don't need to see the planes over and over flying into those buildings because there are families who lost loved ones at that very moment. I'm just wondering where you think this argument, though, legally falls.
Well, before we get to that, I have heard more 911 tapes than anyone could ever hear in their lifetime, and I have goosebumps going into this. I think that this is going to be bone-chilling. I think it's going to be very tough to listen to, but I think we have a First Amendment right to listen to it and to have the media rebroadcast it. And I think that that's, if I had to venture a guess, I think that that's where the court will rule. They're going to have a very difficult time getting past the First Amendment to our Constitution. And a lot of times, Different people do not want things rebroadcast. They don't want things out there. But we live in an open society.
Here's the other thing. This is a death penalty case. In a death penalty case, there are aggravating and mitigating factors. Several of the jurors in voir dire have said, well, I could vote for the death penalty if it were particularly heinous, atrocious, or cruel. And those are the magic words here. So how do we prove heinous, atrocious, or cruel? We do that with evidence.
That 911 tape will be showing Jane Kowalski's testimony about this woman banging and banging and banging on the window, trying to get out. The fact that he so gruesomely, over a period of time, planned out, if he's convicted, this murder, this execution, this burial of an innocent woman with 2 children that he left. He didn't care. He took this woman and he left her kids at home.
And by the way, those kids, just so that everybody viewing knows, were 6 months old and 2 years old. And the way those children were left, locked inside that home alone, were in one crib. Now, I have 2 babies that are about the same distance apart in age, and I know damn well you leave a 6-month-old alone with a 2-year-old in a crib, and that 2-year-old can accidentally kill that 6-month-old baby.
Just by laying next to his brother or his sister.
I mean, the supervision that's required over children that age, and to be left alone and from a house locked from the inside.
Whoever did this crime, and if it's Mr. King who's convicted of it, didn't care. He really didn't care. All he had in mind that day was to commit a crime and to kill this woman and leave her children without a mother.
All the way along the line. The heinousness.
It's disgusting.
6 crime scenes, Tom. 6 different crime scenes. The abduction site, her home. The rape site, his home. The ultimate murder site. The stopover at the cousin's house, and the place where the clothes were ultimately disposed of a few hundred yards away from the execution site. 6 different murder sites, each one of them with heinous, heinous facts attached to it.
The problem of getting your head around is the fact that police, 911, seem to fail this poor woman and may have contributed to her being killed.
The citizens did everything they could.
Jane Kowalski made a call. She told police exactly what was going on, where she was, why cops didn't intercept that car. His cousin, you know,
Harold Muxlow, say what you want,
should be basically the next trial.
How about accessory?
Right, after the fact, before the fact, I don't care.
Homicide or something.
Charge him. He would have been charged if I was running this case. He would have definitely been charged, because you want to say he's still giving police and prosecutors an excuse of why he didn't give his cousin's name.
Right, right. Not only that, but we've got another witness to this, Sean Johnson, who also saw all of this and testified to the noise coming from that green Camaro. Jean Casares, back out to you, and I want to get back to this. All right, well, there's a little bit of a break there. Tom Ruskin, look, I hate to say that we're going to be going through this. You got to lay out a case.
Right.
You got to lay out your case.
Right.
We all kind of feel like, look, it's him in the car. There's so many IDs. There's everything to prove it's him in the car. What we really don't have yet, and I don't know if we'll get it, is if it's him pulling the trigger.
Well, the cops are going to have to show how they basically put a gun in his hand. The prosecution's going to have to show this. And I think that they found shell casings that seem to match the type of gun that was used in this crime. I think they're going to maybe have to show elimination of 2 other possibilities: his cousin's gun and his friend's gun.
Yeah, because
and I don't know if the cops did it by the grooves and cuts on. Yeah, me too.
I hope they did, because the defense, we think the defense may be going there with this. We think the defense may be suggesting that, number one, it's cousin Harold Muxlow, who happens to own a 9mm. How about that? And that he
didn't
probably
call police.
And was disingenuous as well. Well, when he did call 911, ultimately never did say the name Michael King. Just said some green Camaro and somebody's where they shouldn't be. So he was disingenuous about his information. But then they're also suggesting that maybe it's this Robert Salvador, who apparently the day this all happened was at a shooting range with the defendant, Michael King, and that Michael King actually borrowed bullets from Salvador. So, and he has a 9mm. So what you'd have to do is go to these 2 guys, say, give me your 9mm, guys, unless you want to be in this deep and thick. Give me your 9mm so that I can exclude you guys as the shooters. Because those 9mm guns that belong to those 2 guys, you as a cop, you can prove to me that they are or are not the gun that fired the bullet that's in her head.
If the bullet that committed this murder, I mean, not to get really graphic, but if the bullet that committed this murder is pristine, you can look at the cuts and the grooves on the bullet and tie it to or eliminate any other gun from firing that bullet.
And possibly knock down the defense's argument that it
Well, you can knock it totally out.
Right. All right, good to know. We might be hearing that. But in the meantime, we want to make sure that you know that our question of the day is centers around that 911. Thanks, everyone, for joining us. We'll see you right back here on Open Court tomorrow.
Night at 8, they're turning drivers